Justice on trial. Fourah Bay College probes. Shocking allegations against Justice Momoh Jah-Stevens. Inside Salone. From the classrooms of Fourah Bay College to the chambers of justice, a storm is brewing. A university lecturer, who also sits on the bench, is now under investigation for serious allegations that shake the foundations of Sierra Leone's academic and judicial systems. This is BAV Inside Salone, where we dig deep, connect the dots, and speak truth with courage. Stay tuned as we uncover what this case means for justice, education, and accountability, not just in Sierra Leone, but across Africa. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Bold African Voices Inside Salone segment. I'm your host, Isatu Kamara-Kargbo, and tonight we peel back the layers of a deeply troubling saga unfolding within the hallowed halls of Fourah Bay College, FBC, at the University of Sierra Leone, a saga that speaks to student vulnerability, institutional accountability, gender dynamics, and the broader governance of Africa's higher education sector. Let me set the scene. On 10th November 2025, the university's Deputy Registrar Brima Ba issued a press statement acknowledging that FBC had launched a formal investigation into allegations made by a student, Ms. Edwina Jamiru, a Diploma II law student, against part-time lecturer and associate lecturer in the LLB program, Honorable Momoh Jah-Stevens. According to the university, the claims include sexual harassment and corruption, and the institution emphasized its zero-tolerance policy towards any form of harassment, abuse, or misconduct. At the same time, the university voiced serious concern about Ms. Jamiru's method of going public via social media and required all future communications to go through the Deputy Registrar's office in writing. Pending the investigation, the university revealed the lecturer's contract is under review. Now let's unpack this carefully. The allegations and institutional response. The core of the matter is this. A student accuses a lecturer, who also holds a position as a justice in the appeal court, of misconduct that breaches both professional norms and power boundaries. While the official university statement does not publicly detail every element of the allegation, it affirms that an investigation by the College Discipline Committee is underway. The contract review of the lecturer signals that FBC is taking at least procedural steps. Yet, the public framing is double-edged. On one hand, the university declares zero tolerance. On the other, it admonishes the student for publicizing via social media, describing such acts as contemptuous and unproductive, and as risk undermining the image of the university. This indicates a tension between protecting institutional reputation and ensuring student voices are heard, an age-old dichotomy in education governance. Why this matters for students, institutions, and society. Why should you care? Because what happens in this case resonates far beyond Freetown. Student agency versus power imbalance. A student raising concerns against a figure of authority in academia, and indeed law, touches on vulnerable dynamics of gender, class, and institutional power. If universities do not safeguard student rights and facilitate safe channels for redress, the risk is not just individual harm, but erosion of campus culture. Institutional integrity. When universities publicly commit to zero tolerance, but at the same time emphasize image control over disclosure, the credibility gap grows. Do internal investigations lead to meaningful outcomes, or are they token? The review of the contract is a positive sign, but transparency is key. Broader governance and anti-corruption. The allegations include not only harassment, but corruption. Across Africa, universities are increasingly under pressure to ensure the integrity of staff, protect students, and resist external political or judicial interference. This case could become a litmus test for Sierra Leone's higher education governance standards. Africa-wide comparison. Are we alone? Let's zoom out. Similar controversies have emerged in other African countries. In South Africa, institutions such as University of Cape Town and University of Pretoria have grappled with sexual harassment scandals, leading to major reviews of policy, victim support mechanisms, and structural reforms. In Kenya, universities have been criticized for weak student grievance channels and for protecting senior staff from accountability. In Ghana, the University of Ghana has experienced student protests when harassment claims were mishandled, and institutional reputation was prioritized over transparency. What stands out across these contexts? Meaningful reform often comes when student organizations and civil society apply public pressure, when media attention forces institutions to act, and when policies are backed by enforcement. The FBC case echoes this pattern. Public attention might push for deeper change. The road ahead, what to watch. As this story unfolds, here are key questions that should guide our attention. 1. Investigative transparency. Will FBC publish the findings of its discipline committee or at least its summary outcomes? Will the review of the lecturer's contract lead to suspension, dismissal, or remedial action? 2. Victim support and anonymity. Does the institution guarantee confidentiality and protection for Ms. Jamiru and any other students who may come forward? Are counseling services and legal support clearly available? 3. Policy reform. Will this case trigger broader reform at FBC or across the University of Sierra Leone system around student-lecturer relationships, corruption, harassment, and social media disclosures? 4. Institutional culture change. Will the university shift from image control to accountability? Will students feel empowered to report misconduct without fear of retaliation or being labeled troublemakers? 5. Wider implications. Could the way this case is handled send signals to universities across West Africa about embedding stronger norms of governance, gender equity, and integrity? My verdict. In my view, this is more than a single controversy. It's a microcosm of the governance challenges facing higher education in Sierra Leone and across Africa. The fact that FBC has publicly acknowledged the investigation is a positive step. But acknowledgement alone is not enough. The true test will be whether action follows, whether accountability is real, and whether institutional culture changes in favor of student safety and integrity. If handled well, this could become a milestone moment, a turning point for student empowerment, lecturer accountability, and a more transparent university system. If handled poorly, it risks reinforcing cynicism among students and society. That power always shields itself, and victims remain voiceless. And so, as the investigation progresses, we at the Bold African Voice will keep watching. We will demand answers. We will track outcomes. And we will place the voices of students like Ms. Jamiru at the heart of the narrative. Stay with us as this develops, because what happens at Fourah Bay College does not stay within its walls. It resonates across Salone and speaks to Africa's future in higher education. A deeper look into power, silence, and gender on campus. The FBC incident has exposed the persistent culture of silence that often surrounds cases of sexual harassment within African universities. In many institutions, students, particularly young women, find themselves entangled in a web of fear and dependency. Fear of failing a course, fear of character assassination, fear of retaliation, and fear of disbelief. Ms. Edwina Jamiru's decision to go public therefore represents not only an act of defiance, but also a cry for systemic change. Her voice has broken through a wall that many have quietly endured. Yet, the university's initial statement describing her public action as contemptuous and unproductive reflects a discomfort with transparency. This friction raises a fundamental question. Can institutions truly protect victims while simultaneously protecting their own image? Across Africa, we have seen this dilemma repeat itself. From Nigeria's sex for grades scandal at the University of Lagos and the University of Ghana, to Ethiopia's Addis Ababa University harassment inquiry, and even at Makerere University in Uganda, where female students protested alleged abuses by lecturers. The message is clear: academic prestige cannot coexist with moral neglect. When a university prioritizes silence over justice, it inadvertently perpetuates the cycle of abuse it claims to condemn. The role of digital activism in exposing academic abuse. The digital age has transformed the landscape of accountability. In Sierra Leone, social media has become a battleground for truth-telling, an informal court where the powerless find voice. While the university cautions against public portrayals of internal matters, it is precisely this public exposure that often compels institutions to act. We have seen it before. In 2019, a viral video in Ghana led to a parliamentary inquiry into sexual harassment in universities. In Kenya, a student's TikTok confession about lecturer extortion sparked a ministry-level probe. In South Africa, #RhodsMustFall evolved into #EndRape culture, forcing policy reforms across campuses. So when Ms. Jamiru took to social media, she was participating in a wider continental trend, one that prioritizes visibility over secrecy and justice over reputation. Her method may have been unconventional, but history suggests that without public pressure, many cases never see the light of day. Legal and ethical dimensions. Let us not forget that the accused, Justice Momoh Jah-Stevens, is not merely a lecturer. He is a sitting judge. This dual role magnifies the stakes. Sierra Leone's judicial officers are bound by strict codes of conduct, requiring them to uphold integrity both on and off the bench. If the allegations hold, this could raise profound questions about judicial ethics, conflicts of interest, and the broader credibility of the justice system. It also places the Legal Studies Department in an ethical quagmire. How should a law faculty handle allegations against someone who represents the very system that students are taught to trust? Should such individuals be allowed to teach pending investigation, or should they be placed on administrative leave? The university's statement that his contract is under review suggests a temporary pause, but clarity is still lacking. Transparency around these steps is essential not only for accountability, but also for restoring public confidence in the faculty's moral authority. Lessons from other African universities. Looking across the continent, we can identify both cautionary tales and success stories. Nigeria. After the 2019 BBC Africa Eye exposé on sexual misconduct, Nigeria's National Universities Commission implemented whistleblower protections and ethics committees. Ghana. The University of Ghana revised its sexual harassment policy to include mandatory reporting timelines and anonymous complaint mechanisms. South Africa. Universities created gender-based violence task forces and established survivor support centers within campuses. Sierra Leone can draw lessons from these efforts. Beyond investigation, institutions must build systems, transparent, survivor-centered, and inclusive. This means establishing independent ombuds offices, confidential reporting hotlines, and periodic publication of disciplinary outcomes. Until such reforms are standardized, incidents like the one at FBC will keep repeating, each time eroding trust in academia's moral fabric. The societal impact when justice meets public perception. In Sierra Leone, where the judiciary and academia hold symbolic authority, allegations like these ripple through society. For many citizens, this case symbolizes the broader crisis of power abuse and corruption that extends beyond the classroom, into government offices, police stations, and even the courts. If a university cannot guarantee justice within its own gates, how can society trust national institutions to do better? This is why the FBC case is not just a campus story. It is a mirror reflecting the country's broader struggle with accountability. The conversation now goes beyond Ms. Jamiru's complaint. It questions how systems respond when those in power are accused. Will the process be impartial? Will findings be published? And crucially, will there be reforms to prevent recurrence? A call for responsible media and public discourse. As we continue to follow this case, the role of the media also comes under scrutiny. Responsible journalism must walk a fine line, amplifying victims' voices without prejudging investigations. Media houses like Awoko, Politico SL, and Sierra Loaded have shown increasing courage in covering institutional scandals while calling for due process. However, sensationalism must not overshadow substance. The story's essence lies in systemic reform, not personal vilification. This is why here at the Bold African Voice, we pursue a balance, holding institutions accountable while respecting legal boundaries, institutional credibility, and the urgency of reform. As the investigation continues, the credibility of the University of Sierra Leone, indeed of the entire higher education system, is on trial. The institution's commitment to a zero-tolerance policy must be matched by demonstrable actions, public accountability, fair treatment for both the accused and the accuser, and a visible process of justice. If the inquiry ends in silence or vague conclusions, public trust will erode. If, however, it delivers a transparent outcome, supported by tangible reforms such as updated harassment policies, ethics training for lecturers, and safe channels for whistleblowers, then this painful episode could become a turning point. Across Africa, we've seen similar transformations born from scandal. The University of Ghana, after years of denial, revamped its reporting mechanisms following massive public outrage. South Africa's University of Cape Town established gender-based violence units that now serve as models for other countries. Sierra Leone, too, can rise from this controversy stronger if it chooses transparency over protectionism, the role of the judiciary, and the message to public servants. This case also strikes at the heart of Sierra Leone's judiciary. Justice Momoh Jah-Stevens isn't just a lecturer. He is a public official sworn to uphold ethical standards. Should the allegations be proven true, they would amount not merely to academic misconduct, but a breach of public trust. For a nation already grappling with questions of judicial independence and credibility, such allegations demand more than procedural discipline. They demand systemic introspection. It is time for the Judicial and Legal Service Commission to examine whether sitting judges should concurrently serve in roles that create potential conflicts of interest. Public officials, regardless of their rank, must understand that the badge of honor they wear carries both privilege and responsibility. Authority must never become a weapon against the powerless, public outcry, and the power of civil society. The FBC case has reminded us of something powerful, the indispensable role of public vigilance. Civil society, student unions, and online activists have ensured that this issue remains in the spotlight. Without that pressure, it is unlikely the investigation would have been announced so swiftly. Yet, activism must also be guided by responsibility. Social media should serve as a platform for awareness, not defamation. Allegations must be supported by facts, and discourse must aim for justice, not chaos. A balanced approach between institutional accountability and respect for due process is essential for maintaining credibility in the pursuit of truth. A continental wake-up call. Let us be clear. This is not only a Sierra Leonean problem, it is an African problem, a reflection of the fragile ethical culture in many of our public institutions. From Kenya to Ghana, from Nigeria to Ethiopia, too many cases have been swept under the carpet in the name of protecting reputation. But here's the truth. A reputation built on silence and fear is no reputation at all. Africa's universities must evolve beyond the colonial legacy of hierarchy and untouchability. They must become spaces of safety, innovation, and equal dignity, where no student fears retaliation for speaking the truth. We must begin to judge the strength of our educational systems, not only by academic performance, but by moral integrity. Forward-looking reflections, building a culture of accountability. So, what can be done moving forward? Here are concrete lessons that emerge from this case. 1. Establish independent ethics units. Each university should have a fully autonomous ethics and disciplinary office, insulated from faculty interference. 2. Strengthen whistleblower protections. Students must be able to report misconduct without fear of academic victimization. 3. Mandatory ethics training for lecturers. Continuous professional development in ethics, sexual harassment awareness, and professional boundaries should be compulsory for all teaching staff. 4. Partnership with civil society. Universities should collaborate with gender rights organizations to offer training, support, and monitoring. 5. Transparency in outcomes. Institutions must publicly report anonymized disciplinary data annually. Only sunlight brings accountability. These steps, though administrative in nature, have profound societal implications. They signify a shift from reactive management to proactive culture building. A message to African citizens, to the people of Sierra Leone, and to citizens across Africa: never underestimate your voice. Real change begins when citizens demand integrity from those in power, support victims when they speak up, encourage truth-telling but insist on fairness, hold leaders accountable, but also hold yourself to ethical standards in your daily interactions. The responsibility to create a just society does not rest solely with governments or universities. It rests with each of us. When we tolerate small injustices, we cultivate larger ones. A message to African leaders. And to our leaders in government, in academia, in the judiciary, remember this: leadership is not about the preservation of power, it is about the protection of people. Transparency does not weaken institutions, secrecy does. Listening to criticism does not destroy authority. Arrogance does. Africa's progress will be measured not by how fast we build roads or skyscrapers, but by how justly we treat our citizens, especially the powerless, the poor, and the voiceless. Leaders must cultivate institutions that serve truth, not titles, because when truth is silenced, corruption becomes the loudest voice in the room. Key messages and takeaway. 1. Integrity. Over image. Institutions must prioritize justice and transparency over public relations. 2. Empowerment through accountability. Students and citizens must be encouraged to speak out without fear. 3. Pan-African solidarity. Africa's universities share a collective duty to uphold dignity and gender equality. 4. Moral leadership. Public officials must embody the ethics they preach. 5. Citizen responsibility. True reform begins when citizens refuse to normalize abuse. This is the bold African voice, Inside Salone, and I'm Isatu Kamara-Kargbo. The Fourah Bay College investigation remains ongoing, but the lessons are already clear. Justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. For Africa to rise, our institutions must stand on pillars of accountability. Our leaders must walk in humility, and our citizens must never stop demanding better. As Fourah Bay College's investigation continues, one thing is certain: Africa's institutions stand at a crossroads between silence and integrity. The true test of leadership lies not in words, but in accountability. Thank you for watching BAV Inside Salone on the Bold African Voice. Join the conversation in the comments, share your thoughts, and tell us, what does justice mean to you in today's Africa? Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, a bold voice is a free voice.